was intended for those medications many times is not being used. So we're going to talk about that. I have a very dear friend and special guest on, a pharmacist, who's going to talk about this. But if you remember, we had another pharmacist come on, pharmacist Estelle Mbadiwe, and she talked about, at that time I thought she was exaggerating, but she's talked about the coming apocalypse, speaking about antibiotic resistance. And she's saying that this can change the world as we know it. If you think about it, antibiotics are among the most used drugs in the world for the slightest thing. An earache, a toothache, pain. I just had sex. A lady has just had sex, and the first thing she wants to do is take an antibiotic to prevent having an STD. Or she wants to prevent an infection of another kind, or even wants to prevent getting pregnant. She uses the antibiotic. Mothers are always so anxious about their kids. The first thing the child comes down with a fever, she wants to use an antibiotic, and she puts a lot of pressure on the doctors, the healthcare providers, to give this child an antibiotic. Many times it's not that. It's not a bacteria that is causing the problem. It could be a virus. Antibiotics have no place when it comes to viruses. So there's a lot to be known about this, and why this is so important. And again, back to Pharmacist Estelle, is that the coming apocalypse, antimicrobial resistance, drugs, bacteria, microbes are becoming super smart, and they're becoming super resistant. So many times, many of the antibiotics that have been developed, most microbes can find a way to evade them and be resistant to them. So you keep on having to give stronger and stronger and stronger antibiotics. The problem is that it takes a long time to develop a good antibiotic, and sometimes it can take up to $1 to $2 billion to actually come up with a new antibiotic. Well, after 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, and you come up with an antibiotic, those microbes have been able to change and mutate and shift. And so the bottom line is that we're losing the war. So we need to become more intelligent about the use of antibiotics. And it's not just about antibiotics. We're going to talk about all those things in a few minutes. But at this point, I want you to take a listen at this video, and we'll be right back.
There's a national emergency creeping in on us while we sleep as a nation.
There is a looming disaster approaching us very fast.
Serious big deal. We did a sleep on some bicycle.
Nka karịrị nsogbu codeine na tramadol butere anyị.
Abun fata yi tsanani har tafi abin da same mu a arewa kwanakin baya da 'yan Boko Haram da Asambisa da Maiduguri.
Kí ló ń ṣẹlẹ̀? It is antimicrobial resistance. Every day, doctors, pharmacists, lab scientists are faced with a huge dilemma in selecting the appropriate antibiotics for patients. Why? The organisms are getting resistant to virtually all antibiotics.
This crisis even gets worse when we consider the fact that farmers administer antibiotics to healthy animals to prevent sickness and sometimes to make them grow faster. We in turn take the residue of drugs in the meat we eat, thereby contributing significantly to antibiotic resistance in us.
So today, healthcare professionals are forced to use very complex antibiotics to treat very simple ailments. Surgeries are becoming riskier due to this great problem. Our lab reports have changed from this to this.
So what can we do? Is it too late?
It's nearly late, but there's still some hope.
First and foremost, don't take antibiotics if it is not recommended by your doctor or pharmacist.
To not use leftover antibiotics, and don't share with friends and family.
When you take antibiotics, strictly follow the instructions of the pharmacist. Even after feeling better, make sure you complete the dose.
Ọ bụrụ na ị hụrụ na mkpụrụ ọgwụ enyere gị dị ọtụtụ, ma ọ bụ na ị gaghị aṅụchanwu ya n'oge enyere gị, kọwara pharmacist gị ka o nyere gị aka chọpụta nke ahụ ị ga-aṅụ nke na-adịghị ọtụtụ mana ṅụọ ya n'oge ị kwesịrị ịṅụ ya.
Antibiotics don't act on viruses. So when you have a cold or cough, you don't need antibiotics. Usually it will go away when the virus causing the cold dies off. What you need most times is rest. Talk to your pharmacist.
Ku daina siyan magani daga wanda bayi da ilimin magani ko masu garwaya magani cikin leda. Kuna siyan magani daga hannun pharmacy su ne aka ba su amanin siyar da magani. Za ku ga signage ɗinsu an sa wani RX sign a gaban shagon.
Giving tetracycline to children can be very dangerous. Apart from money loss, tetracycline in children can result in permanent yellow coloration of their teeth. Most diarrheas in children are caused by viruses. So the best way to prevent diarrhea in children is to immunize them. Vaccines are available in pharmacies. Talk to your pharmacist.
No go take antibiotics say you won't purify your blood. Abi you won't flush your system. Now that you do.
My dear ladies, using antibiotics after menstruation to cleanse your system is wrong. You're simply making yourself prone to antibiotic resistance.
You may think it's no big deal, but do you know that antibiotic resistance can be transferred to your unborn child?
When you're going to the hospital to visit a newborn baby and you're carrying antibiotics in your hampers, it's not a gift to the baby or to the mother. You're actually delivering a poison.
My brother, my sister, when I don't finish skin to skin, antibiotics no they do shishi. Make I tell you, now one chance you enter so.
Take foods that contain prebiotics and probiotics that help to restore the good bacteria that has been damaged by the antibiotics. You can speak to your pharmacist. Wash and sanitize your hands as often as you can.
Do not buy drugs online unless the website or the social media handle of the pharmacy is verifiable or they have a physical address. No go enter one chance.
Do not fight your pharmacist if your request for antibiotics is declined. Of course, we need the money, but we love you more than the money.
It is sad to say, Nigeria is one of the very few places where any medicine can be brought anywhere. This must stop.
My great people, medicines are not sweet or lollipops. They can be very poisonous.
Sometimes I wonder, it looks like no one cares.
I care.
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 We're pharmacists. We care.
Welcome back. I am here with pharmacist Chris Ibadan, who is a superintendent pharmacist at the Shalom Pharmacy at Dunes Center in Maitama. Pharmacist Chris, thank you so much for making it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm sure it's been really, really busy time for you this Christmas time.
Yeah. I just started, so
Just
a lot of
started.
work to do.
I'm sure. Well, best of luck there.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've seen the video.
Yeah.
A lot of it is about antibiotics and the use and misuse of it. I want us to look at specific examples, not any generalities. What are some of the things you've seen in your 20, 30 years plus as a pharmacist
Okay.
that you've seen that Nigerians in particular just tend to abuse and misuse? Misuse is the right word, right?
All right. Okay, like Dr. Dyer said at the introduction, there's an apocalypse coming. There are so many antibiotics that were useful or that were effective 10 years ago, and people take them now and they come back to you and say, oh, you sold me a fake drug. And it's not because the drugs are fake, but because they've been used wrongly. They've been used when the indication is not there. For example, somebody has a cough and comes to the pharmacy. I have a cough, I want an antibiotic, and they want a strong antibiotic. And sometimes I tell them, using this antibiotic for a cough, especially when the cough is maybe a viral infection, there's no fever, there's no test to show that, okay, this is the bacteria that is causing it. And I tell them, you probably just need to drink a lot of water or rest or take vitamin C. And they said, they'll tell me, no, my brother had the same kind of cough. They gave him ciprofloxacin. And I'm like, it's like killing a mosquito with an AK-47. And at the end of the day, what I always tell, especially women, is that when you take these antibiotics for indications that they are not meant for, you are harming your unborn child. Because by the time you need this antibiotic, it doesn't work. Because like you said something very smart, that the microbes, they are very smart. They adapt very fast. And so by the time you use it when you're not supposed to use it, the microbes, they are not causing anything. And you pour down the antibiotic, so you pour down the drug, and the microbes, okay, this is how they work, this is how they affect us. Next time when we are doing our thing, when they bring this, we now know how to adapt, and then it doesn't work anymore.
Right.
You know, and so those are some of the things we do in this environment. Or somebody comes into the pharmacy, or I hear people go to patent medicine shops or marketplaces or buses, mix antibiotic for me, or mix antibiotic for my child. And you see young children, if you look around, you might see children maybe in their teens and they have yellow teeth. This is because in their infant years, their mothers probably gave them tetracycline, and that caused yellowing of the teeth. And, you know, these children, it was not due to their own fault. Maybe they just complained of a cold, and then the mother rushes, mix antibiotic for me, and you mess up the life of that child, because, God forbid, when that child has a serious infection and they take some of these antibiotics, they don't work anymore. Why? Because the microbes, the bacteria, they become smarter, in quotes, than it. And like you said, it takes billions of dollars, and it takes years sometimes to come up with some of these antibiotics. We remember many years ago when a simple thing like a cut on the finger will kill someone, you know, before penicillins came. And then when the penicillins came, they called them miracle drugs because, you know, but now penicillins do not work for a lot of people because it has been abused over time. Every 10 years or every season, the researchers come up with a new, for example, I think a few years ago, the antibiotic cephalosporins came up. And right now, they are being abused, you know. Somebody using a drug as strong as ciprofloxacin for just a cold.
Just a cold. What's it? Can you say what they usually prescribe that for?
Serious soft tissue infections, bone infections, you know, serious. Main thing is that before you take any of these antibiotics, your doctor will probably refer you to a test, the lab, to do some tests. And when the indication is known, they will do a sensitivity test to know which exact antibiotic will be good for that infection. And then it's prescribed. But you find out these days, people just go to the chemist or they don't, in fact, sometimes they abuse you as a healthcare professional. Oh, you don't know what you're doing. And they go down the road, marketplace, a bus stop, or somebody carrying something on their head on the street, and they just mess up their life. The bad thing about that is that if it was just the person taking the drug that is being affected, well, there's nothing you can do. But sometimes a whole generation is being affected because those bacteria, they don't reside just in that person. They reside in the atmosphere. And it's the same bacteria that will cause a cold in you, cause an infection in you, that will cause in me, that will cause in the man down the street.
Not in me.
Definitely not.
You can have the
you know, so these are some of the things that we do in
well, we were talking about things that can be as simply misusing antibiotics can end up in things like kidney failure, liver failure. Exactly. Talk to us about that.
You know, virtually every drug is metabolized in the liver and then eliminated through the kidney. And so when you overload your liver with drugs that you don't need, you're overworking your liver. In fact, I'm sure so many people who attest to the fact that, and medical professionals will also say that these days we are seeing a lot of young people with kidney failure, with liver failure, and trust Nigerians. Sometimes you see a teenager with kidney failure. The first thing that they say, oh, they don't touch them from village.
That's what
sometimes it's not village. They are not that powerful. You know, it's just because of abuse. You know, a drug as simple as paracetamol. You know, people abuse. They take paracetamol for every. I know for a fact that certain people. If you take a certain dose of paracetamol, it can shut down your system and you die on the spot. I've seen this happen in my practice, where some young guys came into pharmacy and looked like they had dead themselves. They there's a big problem with codeine in the country recently. And, you know, they came and they went into the shop and bought some bottles of Benini with codeine. This was some years ago.
That's a cough syrup?
Yes, a cough syrup. And they downed it at once. They just came out, downed it, and one of them collapsed and died on the spot.
Oh my!
You know, died right on the spot. You know, and so these are things that happen in the environment, and we need to keep on talking about it, and so that people will know that these things. Once you have need for a drug, no matter what the drug is, no matter how simple, ask your health provider, ask your health care provider, and they will advise you.
Yeah, and some people always have this challenge that it's going to take too long to get all the tests done and all that, but I'm sure we'll be able to talk about that as well. We're going to take a few minutes, folks, and then we'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. Now, there's so much to talk about with regards to this topic, and I'm sure we'll be able to get pharmacist Chris back on. But a couple of things I just want to quickly mention. I think feeds now, animal feeds are now being given antibiotics routinely to just preempt and shut down any infections. And these things are being used indiscriminately. So we're not just talking about the ones that we deliberately put in our mouth. We're talking about what we eat that comes in through the food. The antibiotics are coming through the food. And again, these bacteria, these organisms are learning how to put up with these antibiotics and learn how to adapt and overcome them. So there's a lot of issues there. We don't want to leave this show, this segment, without talking about the options. And one of the things Pharmacist Chris and I were talking about during the break is that these antibiotics damage your gut. They damage, how do we put it, the normal flora?
The normal flora, the environment. Right. You know, everybody, I mean, we all have bacteria living in us. But
the good and the bad.
The good and the bad,
yes.
The bad ones are the pathogenic ones. I mean, disease-causing ones. When you have an infection and you're prescribed an antibiotic, what it does is that it's not selective most of the time. It causes a disruption in your system, in your gut area. And so that's why sometimes after taking a course of antibiotics, a doctor, the pharmacist will give you things like probiotics, and that helps to restore. Probiotics are like live bacteria.
The good ones.
Good ones, yeah, very, very good ones. And then when you take that, it helps to restore the good flora in your and also helps boost your immunity. The truth being told is that when your immunity is at the top notch, your body can repair and heal itself naturally. And so there are so many natural things that you can actually take. And some of these, for example, a cold. We're taught and we know that a cold will normally resolve itself within 72 hours. If you take some of these supplements, some of these natural things, vitamin C and some of these immune boosters, you'll find that you will not even need to take medication for a cold, no matter what it is, whether it's an antibiotic that people always clamor for or the simple Pro-Cold or anything like that. All you just need to do is hydrate yourself very well, make sure you eat well, make sure you take some of these supplements. Some people may say, but these supplements are expensive. But some people say, I can get it from my food and all that. But the truth of the matter is that you need specific amounts in your body. And some of the food, in fact, in this environment, you find that somebody eats bread in the morning, eats rice in the afternoon, eats pounded yam in the evening, and says he has eaten.
He has been well nourished.
You know, and so we need some of these things to. And so when the pharmacist or a doctor prescribes some of these probiotics or supplements for you, don't think he's trying to get money out of your pocket. It's for your own good. It's trying to help boost your immunity.
In fact, my strong conviction, Pharmacist Chris, is that everybody, and I've done a few shows on it, everybody should be on immune boosters, because as a nation, our immunity is subpar. Subpar. So, and it's not, when I say everybody should be, people think, oh, yeah, it's about being on a drug all the time. No. Supplements are different from drugs. Drugs, you can have, again, one of the problems with drugs is resistance to antibiotics and side effects and all that. These are things, what we call nutraceuticals and supplements are things that are crucial. Your immune system needs help all the time. You're supposed to get that from food, but the foods that we commonly eat, like the ones he mentioned, do not provide anything that can help boost your immunity. Just take it from me like that. They don't. So you need live foods, raw fruits and vegetables, especially vegetables, to get the right amount of nutrients. And for the most part, we don't take many of these things live or raw. So it's very, very important that you keep on. Again, you mentioned vitamin C. I would say vitamin D3. I talk about that a lot. We as black people have very low levels of vitamin D3 in general. So we can boost that up.
Yeah, that's right.
And the probiotics, I think that's a great idea too.
Yeah, there are a lot of good ones out there. They may be, some are not so expensive, some are, the good ones are very expensive, but they are actually very good. So, for example, a child has diarrhea. The first thing is not to run to stop the diarrhea, in quotes. I mean, you need to rehydrate that child.
Of course.
And then immediately after, give him a lot of these probiotics, maybe for a longer time. And first thing, I mean, we're talking about solutions and what the people can do. First thing, don't take any drug without the advice of a healthcare professional, either your doctor or your pharmacist. And then when you go to the pharmacy, even when you go with a doctor's prescription or you're sitting in the doctor's office, please let the doctor or the pharmacist know other drugs that you are taking, because a lot of drugs interact with it. I saw a patient yesterday, I was just telling Dr. Dyer, that has been on omeprazole for a long time and did not realize that omeprazole has some side effects. I mean, every drug, even paracetamol, has side effects. And we found that he's having osteoporosis now, which was due to taking omeprazole for a long period
So
of time.
osteoporosis is actually
A side effect.
A side effect
Of
and
the
that's
bone
degeneration, pretty
yes,
much.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
so before the person can be walking down the street and suddenly
And
it just falls off and it breaks his femur or breaks his hip bone because the bone just.
So it's very important.
terrible.
Ask questions. Ask your doctor questions. Ask your pharmacist questions. I'm taking this drug. I want to take this. Is there any problem? Or I'm taking this food. I want to take this drug. Is there any problem?
Right. So any other common drugs? Let's talk about the most common drugs that are misused. He is correcting me.
Yeah, I try to, misuse and abuse, they are two different things. When you misuse a drug, you use a drug for a purpose that is not supposed to be used. And when you abuse, it means that you're using the drug to enhance your performance or things like that. A lot of drugs, like we already said, antibiotics are commonly
Antimalarials too.
Anti-malaria are common. And one thing I would like to quickly say about anti-malarials, for example, the artemether lumefantrine is used a lot in this, and I hear a lot of people come, I've taken this anti-malaria before, it didn't work. And I asked, how did you take it? I just took one in the morning, one in the evening. And it's not, you don't take that, especially that pack. You don't take one in the morning, one in the evening. If you read the pack or you sit down for the pharmacist to explain, you take the first dose at 0 hour and then 8 hours later and then 12 hours and 12 hours. And then what you use, some people say, I can't use water, I have to use, like we call it in this climate, mineral. I don't know where that came from, or some people even use alcohol to take their drugs, and that's very wrong. When you're on this particular, the artemether lumefantrine, it's affected by grape juice, affected by, or in fact, some dietary supplements should not be taken at the same time because they cancel the effect.
So water is the best thing to use to take those
For
drugs.
example, like this artemether, you can drink it with milk. Milk helps its absorption, but use plain water. And you need to know the things that you shouldn't be on while you. And then the timing is also very important. Please don't take drugs one in the morning or one in the evening. There are specific times. And then it's important, like we talked about antibiotics. Don't take one. Maybe you're taking it one a day. You take it in the morning today. You take it in the night tomorrow. You take it in the afternoon. No, try and take it morning. Be consistent. The time, even antihypertensive, the time you take it is important. Most antibiotics work better when you take it just before you go to bed. And
so you have to follow the instructions
yes, of course,
to the T.
Of course, yeah.
Man, that's so much. That's so much. But
short time.
So much to learn. Too little time to do it. But anyway, I hope you've got a feel for what it is. We're definitely going to have pharmacist Chris come back on. Thank you, sir. I really appreciate your time again.
Thank you.
And obviously, you can watch this video again. It's on the YouTube. It's on NTA. Your Health in Your Hands. YouTube is also on our website, brainandbodyfoundation.org. You can catch up with that. And what else do we want to say now?
Do you have questions?
They have questions. Yes. So his number is going to be on the screen, or the number is the pharmacy will be. You don't want your number on the screen. I can tell you.
Well, that's why we're trained to answer as many questions as we can.
They definitely will try, and he'll get a number for you to call. Okay. So thank you again for joining us. Remember, your health is in your hands.
Yeah.
a health tip for the day is the obvious one. Make sure you just don't use antibiotics or drugs indiscriminately. Get a prescription. Try to test it out. And so with that, this is the end of the show. And thank you and see you next week. God bless.
NTA Parliament is a dedicated 24-hour channel that broadcasts the activities of the Nigerian Senate, Federal House of Representatives, and all the 36 state houses of assembly. NTA Parliament, strengthening Nigeria's democracy.
NTA, you can't beat the rich.
These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous, whether you do it for fun or for political gains. Real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
This is the network service of the NTA.
The list of what women can do and be is obviously endless, from being mothers, from being wives, from being entrepreneurs, from being sisters, from being friends, mentors, all of it put together. You can't begin to enumerate them. Well, that is why we have this platform, The Woman, to showcase women who are doing, very regular things, but very daring manner. Today, I decided to take a trip all the way to Nairobi, Kenya, to bring in a sister who is doing something really great. Not just for people in Kenya, not just for people in Nairobi. Incidentally, she also has a strength here in Nigeria. I'll tell you how that came to be when we introduce her, but that will be after this time out.
I don't think in gender boxes at all. I just get on with it. A man that would dare to ask the wife, who do you think you are? Dad
is a real man. In fact, our husbands are our firstborns. The husband needs more attention than even the children.
It's not only about work, it's not only about family. They need to take the time to look after themselves, and we don't. We don't do that.
They took my money, I paid every fees. I never asked to be hoisted as a governor. I wanted to be allowed to go out there and contest for the position of governorship candidate first.
There's nothing greater than looking back and seeing that while you were aspiring, you were able to inspire others.
Empowered to women. Yes. We need to have more women, more multitaskers around Nigeria to get Nigeria working.
Definitely. All right, join me as I welcome Nana Wajau. I hope I got that right.
Wajau.
Wajau. Okay,
yes.
Okay. Somebody tried to teach me how to greet in Kenya language. I forgot. But,
just say jumbo.
I can say jumbo. But that's for strangers. I'm not a stranger.
No, that's for tourists. So you can say habari.
Habari. That's the word I was looking for.
And I will say mzuri.
No, in my place, there's something we call waziri. Is that a corrupt form of saying waziri?
No. Waziri and mzuri are two different things.
Okay.
So, habari mzuri.
Habari mzuri. That actually goes to tell me that there is a link between all languages.
Exactly.
You know, waziri, waziri, habari, all of them put together. Well, nice to have you in Nigeria.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
All right. I really don't know where to begin from you, but you have this exceptional package for women. You know, it comes from deep within. I'd like to know, what about women? You know, it brings out that strength in you to work for women, especially the less privileged ones.
Thank you. I don't know if I'm exceptional. I believe that women, we are a package. We have just not been aware of the capacity and the ability that is innate and lies within us. We've not owned our own power. We don't even know it exists. But that's a story for another day. All women, we are exceptional. The fact that we are able to give birth to life and nurture and bring up a whole human being, boy or girl, it doesn't matter. We're the ones who create the world. What is all that? That's power.
Exactly.
So I think all women are exceptional, and I'm just one of those women.
But there are a lot of us who rarely can get up and pick up, you know, the shattered pieces and decide to put it together. But you're doing exactly that, especially your outreach for the widows. Talk to us about it.
I was raised by a widow.
Oh.
Yes, by my grandmother. And I remember one night we are asleep. My grandmother, by the way, is from a small village called Bukoba by Lake Victoria on the Tanzanian side.
So you also have a bit of Tanzania?
Yes, yes. One night after my grandpa passed on, we woke up to the thunderous sound of banana plantations falling. People had come and they were cutting down our banana trees. Why go away? My grandmother was a widow, and simply as such, she was no longer needed or required. Her presence was no longer a need, and they wanted her and whoever was with her to leave. So we feared for our lives, and we started relocating. So even at an early age, I had already experienced the trauma through my grandmother of a woman losing her husband. And I grew up with that in me, you know, that question mark, why? So long story short, I'm very big on community work, and I really wanted to help the widows, specifically because where I stand right now, I'm truly and honestly privileged by all means. But women, our identity is still tied heavily to a man. That once your loved one, the man is, deceases, you almost cease to exist in the eyes of the community.
Sure.
And this happens whether the woman is rich, educated, exposed. Her status changes.
Sure.
Now, add on poverty, this woman who's poor, add on illiteracy, add on cultures that dehumanize women to this widow. She does not exist in the eyes of community. Hence the dehumanizing cultural practices that these widows face after the demise of their husbands. So Power Woman International is about women empowerment, and we empower women across the board, from the top to the bottom. But really my heart and really what we are really about is to socially and economically advance this woman. And we work with ostracized widows, specifically because that's a whole different category of a widow. An ostracized widow is a widow who's been rejected and ejected by her people. Most people ask me why. Sometimes it's as simple as I said, as we no longer need you.
Was that because your grandma was, ostracized, so to speak? That's why you're chasing those ones more?
Yes, I experienced firsthand the rejection and ostracization. So those are the ones we look for, because when you're ostracized as a widow, it means that woman no longer has the protection of her family, her in-laws, but also she no longer has the protection of the community. Without that, she's vulnerable and exposed. Sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse. If she has daughters, the mother and the daughters, they carry the same omen of ostracization. Those are the women we really want to rescue, because I can't imagine what else could go wrong at that level. You're already at the bottom. Yeah.
All right. Now, I'd like to really ask, while you were telling the story, I was actually thinking real deep, because I thought plights of widows were mostly just around this vicinity, but it's surprising. It also cuts across the African countries. But I'm trying to find out, how do you provide succor to this woman? What exactly do you do? Do you empower them? And then do you get to monitor the empowerment if it's yielding fruits?
I'll answer your question in two phases. One, you said you thought that this was just, that happens to widows in this part of the world. Yes. But when I started doing this work, the Estonian parliament asked for me to send data and, videos of what we are doing on the ground with the widows, because they wanted to showcase in the Estonian parliament what Kenya is doing for the widows, so that they could probably learn and adopt for their own people. So I was surprised that Estonia was asking for our works to implement and teach in their programs. So it happens across the board, maybe in different intensities, different cultures, but a woman's status changes immediately her spouse deceased. How do we help these women? We have 4 pillars. Because the ostracized widow, by nature of being ostracized, she has no shelter, no community protection. So our first pillar is shelter. Even if I want to empower and train this woman, I can't empower her in a carton box house in the bush. The first thing is to put her under some kind of security, some environment that is decent, as part of the process of beginning to restore dignity. And we also deliberately target widows with young children. I'll explain that later. So shelter is our number 1 pillar. Counseling is our second pillar. We call it empowerment. I know we talk about empowerment, which is really skills and techniques and so on, but there's something called empowerment. Empowerment is empowering the woman from inside, and it starts by healing. These women go through traumatic experiences. She's already lost her husband, but what follows that leads to ostracization is extremely traumatic. The woman has to heal, because she has children to raise, she has a life to live, And guess what? As a woman, she's 50% of the economic empowerment program of any country. If you empower this woman, she becomes a contributor.
Definitely.
The third pillar is now economic empowerment, which is empowerment. We train the widows through different partnerships on skills. We look at their environment. What can they do? What can they learn? Whom can we partner them with so that after we leave, this woman is able to generate for her family? The last pillar is education, which is, for me, the most important pillar, because in the long term, that's where our impact is. It is through education of these children from the widows that was ostracized. Through education, through exposure, they will be the ones to come back in their communities, in their motherland, and say no to cultures that dehumanized their mothers, their sisters, their own daughters.
Beautiful.
That's where we are hoping the impact and will change the narrative through the education of the children.
And that's actually creating a change that will last, with time. Thank you very much. But we'll be continuing with this discussion, and my personality, who is seated with me, though we are talking something quite gloomy, has the sunny side of her. We'll get to look at that, but that will be after this time out. Don't go away.
I don't think in gender boxes at all. I just get on with it.
A man that would dare to ask the wife, who do you think you are? That is a real man. In fact, our husbands are our firstborns. The husband needs more attention than even the children.
It's not only about work, it's not only about family. They need to take the time to look after themselves, and we don't do that.
They took my money, I paid every fees. I never asked to be hoisted as a governor. I wanted to be allowed to go out there and contest for the position of governorship candidate first.
There's nothing greater than looking back and seeing that while you were aspiring, you were able to inspire others.
Empower to women. Yes. We need to have more women, multitaskers around Nigeria to get Nigeria working.
Definitely. We've been talking so much about your Power Women International and what you're doing with it. But I also know that you're the chairman of the Commonwealth Businesswomen, right? So how does that affect the Power Women International?
As you can hear, common trend there is women. Commonwealth Businesswomen Kenyan chapter, we are currently in formation. We've just received the authority to use the word Commonwealth for Kenya. So the registration process has already begun. I'm the chair, our founding chair passed on, so I'm now stepping in. It's such an honor because the Commonwealth is creating a platform specifically for women to trade across the Commonwealth.
It's not restricted to Kenyans alone.
No, it's the entire Commonwealth.
Okay, so I can actually...
In fact, I might as well say that while I'm in Abuja and I'm now going to Lagos, I am intending to meet the Commonwealth Businesswomen Nigerian chapter chair.
Okay.
And the idea is to really brainstorm on how we can enhance business women to trade in the Commonwealth platform.
Beautiful.
Because there are many privileges that have been given to women to encourage them to cross-trade in the Commonwealth countries. So you will be hearing a lot about the Commonwealth businesswomen, and you will join us, I'm sure.
Oh, definitely. I'm looking forward to that. Now you mentioned Abuja. I know you're here on a particular, instance, and I see you carrying a book by a writer that I appreciate so much. Talk to me about your mission in Abuja.
I belong to a book club called the Carpe Diem, Seize the Moment. We believe in living every moment fully. We've been reading together for the past 18 years.
18 years?
Yes.
Wow.
Our children are, avid readers because of that. In the recent years, we've been very much interested in African authors. So this month, we picked to read the book by a Nigerian author called Osi Obu.
Osi Obu.
Obu. Did I pronounce it?
You tried. I give you 40%.
It says the moon also sets. Now, reading the book is just part of the book club. We go further and travel to the land of the author to meet the author and discuss the book with him.
Beautiful.
So this evening we are meeting Osi Obu.
Okay, that's lovely. Now, you also a writer. I know you had this book, something about mountain and climbing, and I intend to read it.
Well, yes.
I saw it on the internet.
Yes.
So, but talking about that book, did it come from your experience climbing the mountain? I know you took a delegation to the mountain.
Mount Kilimanjaro.
Kilimanjaro. Did you really get to the top?
Twice in 1 year.
Oh my God. I thought I was adventurous.
I climbed the Kilimanjaro twice in 1 year.
And you didn't faint?
No, I didn't faint. I transformed.
How?
I transformed.
How?
I was president of Rotary, past president Rotary Nairobi East, and in my capacity as president, these were our fundraising initiatives. The first time I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, I had obviously no clue what to expect. Had flown in from a holiday straight into the Kilimanjaro bus, started climbing the same night. 4 days later, we are on top of Kilimanjaro.
You were climbing mountain for 4 days?
Yes, Mount Kilimanjaro.
4 days, like 1, 2, 3.
It is 4 days of no bathing.
You didn't have a bath?
You didn't have a bath for 4 days. You have a cup of water every morning to clean every vital part of your body that you feel.
For 4 days?
For 4 days.
Jeez.
And then I did it later in the same year for the same reason.
You
but
were not
I was
daunted
ready.
After 4 days of no bath. You still went back again.
Still went back.
Baby, you have some guts.
That's why I said I transformed. You know, I learned that in life, it's not what life hands at you. It's how you handle it, how you manage it. The book I'm writing is called Don't Carry the Mountain, Climb It. We are in the habit of carrying burdens and baggage that are unnecessary in life. Once you face a mountain, don't put it on your shoulder. Go around it, go over it, climb it. Use it to your advantage. Leverage on that mountain. Learn from it. That's why I went back the second time. I had learned lessons that I didn't know the first time I climbed that Kilimanjaro. But the second time I climbed it, I climbed that mountain. The first time I almost carried it on my back. But the second time I climbed it, and the difference was huge. I've noticed that in life. Face a mountain and recognize, yes, it's a mountain. I don't need to carry it.
You have to
I have to climb it. And find means
I know
and
you
ways.
actually raised money doing that thing. What did you do with that money?
Oh, as Rotarians, we have various projects on health, water and sanitation, education. Polio is our #1 global project. So all the money we raise across the board, 20% must go to polio. But we are constantly raising funds in order to meet our community needs. And it comes in various forms. It's just as presidency, I wanted to climb the mountain.
I was going to join you, but I'm thinking twice. When you want to climb, my phone will go on silent. Because if you call me, I'm not going to answer.
I have a feeling if you dared climbed once, you'd go back.
Twice a year, right?
Yes.
4 days without a bath?
Yes.
I can take a breath. All right. I know that one thing you carry well, and you not only climb it, you walk around it, is the family and its values. You have 2 lovely boys, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
now how do you find time to, live up to your family obligations?
I think for me that was the easiest part, because when we got married, my husband and I, Mr. Wanjao, whose name I proudly carry. Wanjao. I told him, once we have children, I want to stay home. These high-flying jobs, I don't want to leave my children. And I was very clear, for a decade, I just want to focus on my children. I did it for 13 years.
13 years?
Yes. I am so glad that I had the insights earlier on that I only had a short window that I could influence the lives of my children. I could influence their values, the culture, who we are as a people. But I wanted to be there. I didn't want to miss these formative years of my children. And now my oldest is turning 18. He's going to college. The younger one is 14. They're literally out of the house. At this point, what can I do? They're going, they're leaving my house. But I'm so glad that I took the time to look after my children. While I was, that decade I was home, I started a real estate company. I needed to do something.
So you weren't really idle?
No. Well, when you have children, you're not idle at all. But I wanted to do more. And I was telling a friend of mine this morning that we should always aim at expanding our plate. Once you can do this well, add on to something. We women especially can manage a lot of things. Expand your plate constantly until to a point where you now want to downsize into retirement and into mellowing into sunrise and sunset. But before that, while you were young, keep expanding your plate. So I started a real estate company. Now, 17 years later, we are actually 18 years later, we are in residential, we are in office space, we are in hotel residentials as well. So whenever you're in Nairobi and you need office and you need residential, look for me.
That one I'll definitely do.
Yeah.
I'll definitely
so
do.
I've managed to, I've put in the time with the boys. Now the boys are in boarding school. There's no child at home. Now I'm
It's
able
time to fly.
to travel and talk about what I'm really passionate about, which is women and the girl child.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, you have done all that. Like you said, I quite agree with you completely that when you're raising children, there's no moment, there's no dull moment. They're very inquisitive, they're very energetic. But how do you find time to relax? And what do you do when you're relaxing, beyond just writing?
Because I speak to a lot of young women and they're always concerned about health. How do we get babies and still remain nice and, you know. And one thing that I guarantee you is rest. We must rest. Even as I say, expand your plate. Personally, I do 7 hours of sleep.
Daily?
I try to daily. I really try. But I'm very conscious about it. I used to do 4, I used to do 5. I'm out of that. I do now 7 to 8.
It's beautiful.
Why? Because this is the only body I have to do everything that I need to do in this world.
And for crying out, you have another 16 hours to get it done.
Thank you. So if I cannot get the other 16 hours to do what I need to do, I need to look and re-strategize. What am I holding on that somebody else should be doing? Remember, I said, don't carry the mountain. Just climb it. Do what you need to do. The rest, let other people do.
Beautiful.
Delegate. Sleep. Rest. Drink lots of water. And I dance a lot.
You dance? Have you tried Nigerian dance? The shaka.
I'm yet to go dancing, but I intend to before I go back.
No, there's the one we call shako shako. Make sure you learn it.
Okay.
You know how to do it?
No.
It's done like this. Just put your hand this way, this way, this way. Then if the telephone call thing, then draw it. That's it.
Are you going to take me?
I
need a teacher.
Don't worry, we'll get you one. Thank you so much for coming on the show. All right, wonderful. And when you go back, I know you're very comfy with Nigeria. You went to business school here in Lagos.
Yes, and I love the jollof rice.
You like jollof rice?
Yes.
Okay, try the pepper soup with it too.
I had pepper soup today, fish pepper soup.
Fish?
Yes.
Was there enough pepper?
Oh, it was a lot.
Okay. All right. It's in The Woman, and I've been having this lovely chat with my Nairobi, Kenyan sister who is doing wonderful things, Nana Wajal. Thank you.
Thank you.
And shout out to Mr. Wajal. Beautiful wife. Bye.
That are not married and they're doing these incredible.
Well, there's a mirage of things. I think first of all we have to go back to
the writer. You are very well known for teaching skills. Your students speak a whole lot about you.
Miss Nigeria competition.
And I said, let's pick them up. Let's take them back to Nigeria and let's teach them a different kind of job.
She cries. She cries in anguish and in pain. She bears the scourge of her grief. She toils in vain for justice and succumbs to silence. He gloats over his malady. Like a beast, he pounces with no remorse. Her cry means nothing. Her pain feeds her shame. Like an orphan, she's left to grieve in solitude. But no more will she cry in vain. Her adversaries will henceforth bear the brunt of their cruelty. Rape is evil. Rape is a plague, a pandemic of monumental consequences. We must unite and kick it out of our society.
Connect with NTA and stand against rape and rapists. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
That social media is not good or bad, and that it is you who is using it that is either good or bad. Bad social media users spread rumors and fake news without verification. But good social media users stop, verify the information, and reflect before sharing it. Now, are you a good social media user? Stop the spread of fake news. Verify the authenticity of your source for a better Nigeria.
This message is from the National Orientation Agency.
Hello, it's a warm welcome to Sports Ray, reaching live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. And give George.
Hello again. Welcome to the news update at 11. I am Joseph Johnson. President Muhammadu Buhari has sent a joint delegation of the federal government and legislature to condole with the government and people of Borno State over Saturday's killing of rice farmers in Zabamari village of Jere local government area of Borno State. The delegation, led by the Senate President Ahmad Lawan and Chief of Staff to the President Ibrahim Gambari, also visited bereaved families in Zabamari village to convey the President's commiseration.
The government of Cameroon and the government of Niger in clearing the remnants of the insurgents in the shores of the Lake Chad and in Mandarafi.
The federal government is surely going to step up its action against the insurgents, and as we mourn our dead, the President had asked the armed forces to take the battle, the fight to the insurgents wherever they are, and this should be sustained. And we believe that it's a matter of time. A lot more of resources will be deployed.
And President Muhammadu Buhari is reassuring Nigerians that the Boko Haram insurgency inherited by his administration will not be handed over to his successor in office. The President, who stated this Monday evening at a strategic engagement with Senate President Ahmad Lawan, said more decisions and proactive steps are underway towards ending the menace.
He inherited insurgency, and he will finish with the insurgency before he leaves office by the grace of God. He will make available as much resources as possible for our armed forces to be well prepared and armed to fight the insurgency that has bedeviled that part of the country.
Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Sadia Umar Farouk, says the ministry will consolidate on its collaboration with relevant ministries and agencies, as well as international donor agencies, in order to continually achieve the desired goals of improving the lives of the vulnerable and poor Nigerians. The minister said this at the ministerial press briefing on the 2020 activities of the ministry.
We have also developed a plan for the post-COVID-19 recovery period, which are job creation, farmers' grants, and livelihood projects. Our strategy is to build resilient structures that include the Nigerian vulnerable youth and other vulnerable groups going forward. Palliatives.
With all due respect and with all sense of modesty and decency, I think the Honourable Minister has discharge her job honorably and efficiently and effectively.
And that's the update for now. Another comes up at 1. Do stay with us and have a great day. I'm Joseph Johnson. Bye-bye.
This is the network service of the NTA.
Nigeria is in full-blown economic recession, the second in 4 years. Now, this follows the gross domestic product GDP decline in real terms by minus 3.62% year-on-year in Q3 2020, thereby marking a second consecutive contraction from minus 6.10% recorded in the previous quarter. Attributed to the global pandemic, the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning has assured that the country will exit recession by the first quarter of 2021. How will this happen given that COVID-19 is not yet done and coming on the heels of a devastating end-SARS protests? Well, we'll find out soon enough in the discussion segment. Welcome to Insight. I'm Victor Azu. And as always, Elizabeth Omori is waiting in the wings with the media review segment. So what do you have for us, Elizabeth?
Well, this week will be my searchlight on Nawaj. Just so you know, Nawaj has a new kid that has taken up the mantle of leadership. Indeed. What will she be doing differently? What is her mandate? And how will she change the narratives? She will provide answers on the media review segment.
And now that will make for a very much interesting conversation. I have been joined by a professor of capital markets and former Imo State Finance Commissioner, Uche Waleke. Prof, a pleasure to have you join us.
Thank you very much. It's also my pleasure to be here.
Now, also joining the conversation is financial and investment analyst, Niya Kinshiju. Thank you for coming on Insight.
Thank you for having me.
Now, let me begin from the basics and with Prof. What really does it mean to be in economic recession for the benefit of the ordinary Nigerian?
Thank you very much, Victor. Recession, economic recession, it's simply a downturn in economic activities. But it also has a technical definition. Now, when we say economic activities, of course, as measured by the gross domestic product. What is gross domestic product? It is the monetary value of goods and services produced in an economy, within a particular period. Okay, so it is measured, of course, periodically. Okay. So when you hear that the economy contracted by a certain percentage, okay, it is based on the earlier performance. So it's a movement from one period to the other. But as I said earlier on, there's a technical definition of recession. When this contraction, okay, happens as negative growth in real GDP, okay, happens consecutively for 2 or more times, then we say the economy has entered a recession. If you recall, just as you said, the first record of negative growth in real GDP was in Q2 of 2020. Of course, GDP figures in Nigeria are being computed every quarter. So in Q2 of 2020, we had a drop, minus 6.10. In Q1, it was a positive figure. As a matter of fact, since the 2016 recession, which we exited in 2017, the economy started on a recovery path, recording positive growth rates, such that by the end of 2019, the economy had grown by 2.27%. As a matter of fact, in the last quarter of 2019, it grew by 2.57%.
Now, but what does all of this mean for the ordinary Nigerian, perhaps that is not lettered, especially in terms of Naira and Kobo?
Yes, for the ordinary Nigerian, the economic activities are going down, and they are going down principally because of the COVID. The consequences of COVID-19, the pandemic. As you know, when the pandemic started in March, 2020 in Nigeria, the first case, you remember, was reported on 27th of February. When it started, by April, the government had imposed restrictions. There were lockdowns, movement restrictions. So that affected economic activities. Remember I said a recession is about a downturn in economic activities. So trade was affected, manufacturing was affected, people were not traveling, flights were all cancelled. So all this contributed to the drop we had in Q2. And to compound the matter, because it was a twin shock, to compound the matter, oil price was also dropping. Nigeria, as you know, depends so much on the oil sector. So oil price fell, COVID came, and all of that, caused the recession. Now, for the ordinary man on the street, why it is biting, why it has become biting, is because of the twin problem that the country is currently facing. And that twin problem, comprises 1, the recession, and 2, inflation. So you have rising case, of food prices. So when you have an inflation and a recession, you have a situation where we call stagflation, and stagflation compounds the entire thing. So the common man goes to the market to buy things. The prices have gone up, partly because the goods are not there. So you have a supply challenge arising from supply disruptions from COVID. So the goods are not available, and the prices are going up. So the common man is in a quandary.
All right, the common man is in a quandary. It becomes necessary for us to have that background so that subsequent talks we are going to have on it on the program will be easy to follow through, especially by those who may not be economists or financial analysts or specialists. Now, Nii, did you see this coming, and how deep into the recession is Nigeria? Is it deeper than in 2016?
The major character of this particular economic downturn, as it were, was the global pandemic, and before it got to our shores, it had actually started impacting even very developed world relative to us. So by the time we saw Q2 results at 6.10, it was as expected. In fact, some of us were were even appreciative of that figure because international agencies and some other pundits had projected higher figures, higher negative figures.
For Nigeria or
for Nigeria. We came in at 6.10, and a number of other international agencies had actually projected 8-point-something% negative. So it was like a redeemed position for us. And of course, going forward, principally the causes of that result were mainly the lockdown, no social interaction. No social interaction translate to mean reduced transactions, you know. So except those who are transacting businesses on the internet, physical transaction of businesses or economic activities were limited, and as it were, the circular effect of that also reflected on our crude oil sales and price, you know, and we now put that together. That led to the decline that we first witnessed in quarter two 2020. Going forward into quarter 3 2020, it was expected that the result or the outturn would be milder, you know, than Q2 2020. Why? Then lockdown was being lifted, more economic activities were experienced, you know, in other sectors. I mean, those sectors that were locked down, and of course, there have been policies in place to drive the economy by the government. We started seeing policies like the economic sustainability program, and of course the monetary policy, you know, even the monetary policy rates, the reduction of the monetary policy rates by the CBN in May from 13.5% to 12.5%, and later in September from 12.5% to 11.55%. Quite accommodative. So, and what that tells us is that the central bank wanted to encourage money deposit banks, the commercial banks, to lend at cheaper rates to businesses and to manufacturers and other economic players. So, going forward, what's clear was that we expected this. We also expected that it to be milder. And compared to 2016, it's obvious that it's not as deep, you know, as 2016. Why is not as deep? In terms of the figure threshold, in terms of its figure qualification, is deep for coming from second quarter 2020 at 6.10. You know, that's quite high, you know, compared to the first quarter 2016. When it was 0.36. But the difference is that the second quarter that took us into recession in 2016 was a higher intensified decline to 2.0 minus 2.06, you know. So when you compare that, that's what took us. That's the figure that took us into the recession technically then. But now we have a 6.10 first. I mean, in quarter 2 2020. The figure that took us into this recession now is a mitigated figure at 3.62. So, which means the economy is actually recovering.
But might there be other contributory factors, or is it just, you know, COVID-19, Prof?
We had supply disruptions.
Okay.
So, companies, of course, couldn't continue to produce. So you had low capacity utilization. And the lockdowns and restrictions in movement also meant that trade, you know, would suffer. Hotel and accommodation services, you know, also suffered.
Okay.
Now you notice that a number of these sectors, especially transport, okay, transport that I think that dropped as high as 49% in quarter 2 of 2020. Okay, now about 42%. So we have transport, you have construction, manufacturing, trade. Okay, they are still in the negative territory. But what is interesting to me is the fact that compared to quarter 2 of 2020, in quarter 3, these sectors, showed some promise. These sectors, are beginning to, post improved, performance, even though they are still in the negative territory. And that, of course, is helped largely by the fact that the economy is being restarted. Okay. Lockdowns are being eased, and more importantly, too, the interventions by the government and the Central Bank of Nigeria have also gone a long way to ensure that some recovery effort is being made. So by and large, yes, the COVID. I also mentioned the issue of oil price. Remember, in 2016 was more from the slump, the sudden crash in oil price. Oil price was as high as $100 per barrel in 2014, 2015. Then suddenly it fell. And when it fell, the government revenue dropped. Government revenue dropped. Subnational governments, state governments, couldn't even get money to pay salaries. So in 2016, we had a case of weak aggregate demand, more or less, as John Maynard Keynes will say. Weak aggregate demand, resulting in inflation. So people couldn't, as I said, receive money to even, make purchases. But here we are in 2020. Another situation is playing out. But as I said earlier on, compounded by COVID, and again, we are also witnessing rising inflation rate. So the real challenge that the economy is facing now is the stagflation. Okay. How do you tackle rising inflation?
Okay. I'm sure that that is being looked into. But Niyi, with the Yuletide in sight, what does the recession portend for Nigerians? At least it's a given that it will run through Christmas and beyond, into the new year.
Well, if we sustain the recovery, as it were, I think the recession will recede, and hopefully we should get into the positive territory through the either at the fourth quarter or latest as projected the first quarter of 2021. But of course, a major headache, a major challenge will be the prices of commodities. That's established. But again, I find comfort in the fact that it's a global phenomenon. Even in developed countries, there are issues with commodities and pricing, items and pricing. Don't forget that between April and July, there were major challenges with supply, even supplies of raw materials across the globe, And some of us are thankful that there had been an attempt for inward experimentation with our Greek, with our agricultural sector. So the Anchors Borers program and all that had started yielding some forms of production, or productivity as it were, by the time we experienced this. I want to imagine if it had come along when we were spending $23 billion average on food imports, and at a time when countries we were importing food from had also closed their own borders, because at the point in time, Thailand and all the other countries we were dependent on for our food imports had closed their own borders. They were not allowing food out of their jurisdiction. So we had now to look inward to sustain ourselves. Of course, it also means that the food that we could have imported to supplement our local production were not available. So naturally, forces of demand and supply, it would price would skyrocket.
So it's going to be a hard Christmas, perhaps?
Oh, well, I am.
Because I already heard that those selling chicken say it could get to as high as 10,000 naira.
There's a market reaction to the news of the possibility of the opening of the borders. Most entities that want the borders opened are not exactly within the official economic space. That's the truth of it. They are the one in the informal, and of course providing the complements and supplements to our food needs. albeit through smuggling. But I have also heard the Farmers Association complaining of the possibility of opening up the borders because it is also going to impact their own businesses. I think going forward, anyway, the economic stimulus plan, as it's been implemented, programs there are. I mean, at the last count, I counted about 34 different schemes and programs, derived from the economic sustainability plan. If those programs are properly implemented, it will ease and, of course, cushion the economic environment.
But are those programs not also affected by COVID-19 and then the just ended EndSARS protests?
Well, at least they were in response to the COVID-19 challenges. So for instance, Prof talked about hotels, restaurants, and some sectors that were principally impacted. There were certain sectors like the telecoms and the finance sectors and all that were actually driven, that were energized, by the challenges of the COVID-19. But there were some that became vulnerable. The education sector, or private education operators, became vulnerable. Hotels were locked down, which means from the 0-star hotel to our own Transcorp 5-star hotel were not functional. So they became those operators in that sector also became very vulnerable. So part of the program of the economic sustainability program is to first provide comfort for workers, especially those in the micro, small, medium enterprises segment, of the economy. Those that could not, in that sector, that were not able to pay their workers. Rather than, if you are not able to pay your worker, the next thing you want to do is to lay them off, is to retrench. So the part of the program has the payroll support program. So where the government will provide certain percentage or certain threshold between 30,000 and 50,000, per worker. The whole idea is to try and sustain that business. And of course, you have the targeted credit facility and a lot of other programs that is targeted at the vulnerable sectors of the economy as it were. So going forward, I think there is a measure of stability in the space. By the time, as Prof noted, by the time we address the agricultural sector, and I think the dry season farming season will be able to assuage that going forward. Don't forget that the major headache, especially for rice, which is a major staple, was the unfortunate flooding in 3 food basket states, Jigawa, Kano, and Kebbi. Where more than 5 million hectares of rice ready to be harvested, were destroyed. So I think going forward, there should be a form of stability.
All right. Now, the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning had said that Nigeria will exit the recession in the next quarter, which is just between perhaps January, March. It's good news, but how optimistic are you, Prof? Are you as optimistic as the minister is?
Yes, I am quite optimistic. As a matter of fact, I have no doubt in my mind, given the certain indicators, which I'll mention shortly, that our recovery journey is going to be V-shaped. So it's going to be a V-shaped, recovery.
We have to come further down before.
No, it has already bottomed out. That's the good news. It's bottomed out at 6.10. I don't see us getting to that level again. And of course, as you know, even the central bank governor talked about the end of the year. Although I think that is a little ambitious. Judging from, you mentioned it, in October we had the EndSARS protest. That will of course have its own impact on GDP. And also the fact that a number of sectors are still in a negative territory. So end of December might be too early, but I want to share in the optimism of the finance minister
first quarter is
that
possible.
first quarter is quite realistic.
Right.
As you know, if you look at some certain indicators, take the Purchasing Managers Index, for example. which is a measure of manufacturing activity. For the first time, we have seen it move beyond the 50-point threshold. Look at what is happening in the stock market, for example. Okay, and then you also consider the fact that to a large extent, we've seen some stability in the forex markets. The central bank, has ensured stability, at least in the official windows. I'm not talking about the parallel market now. So if you consider that, and you consider the fact that the economy has started opening up, business confidence, is gradually returning, then from every indication by the first quarter of 2021,
we should be out
yes, we should be out of.
All right, let's troubleshoot a bit. Niyi, what needs to be done to ensure that the recession does not linger?
Yeah, well, it's obvious. It's what we are feeling now. The effects of the lingering part of the. How do I not put it now? It's an accumulation of the lingering nature of the pandemic, and that is why it has bottomed out. And I think the phrase used by Prof is very, very appropriate. It has bottomed out at 6.10. Normally, when you get into a second quarter of a recession, it's the decline is supposed to deepen. That's a troubling recession where there are new challenges are being thrown up. But now, because there's a growth, the growth, for instance, in the non-air sector at 2.51 is actually about netting off the 3.48 thereabout growth in the non-air sector. The growth of 3.62 that we have also recorded in quarter 3 2020 is also netting off, the growth of 2.48 thereabout in the total aggregation of both the oil and non-air sector. So we are talking of growth, but the reflection or the manifestation of those growths are still in the negative territory. So to that extent, we say it is still a technical recession, but it is actually there is a growth undercurrent to the recession as it were. So, and I said the important thing is to continue with the policy application, which is inclusive of expansionary spending, spending as much as possible. The construction, what impresses me more from the result for Q3 2020 is the construction sector. The construction sector returns a 2.448 percentage points, over where it was 31.77 in 31.77% in Q2 2020. So you can see the quantum of growth, in that sector, because construction usually comes with a lot of employment of more hands, So if you are employing more hands in that sector, it means more money will go into pockets, especially of the low-income earners, and that will also empower them, for effective demand.
But construction also requires that those doing the construction will have some good money.
Yeah, that's
to do the construction, so if which will now trickle down into.
No, if you have, that's what I'm saying. That's what the figures have given us. The figure has given us growth, so it means money had gone into that sector, and because money had gone into that sector, it's likely, because the sector would expanded, employment of course will also be favored.
All right.
And to get, of course, the logic is simple. Over the last 12 months or thereabouts, the banks, money deposit banks, had actually created more than 3.4 trillion credits. That's huge money in the economy. If you are coming from a 15+ trillion money in the economy, credit, to 18.9 trillion money in the economy, it means extra 3.9 trillion naira credit had been given out to different sectors and segments of the economy. Yes, it is about enabling the economy and productivity too.
Thank you, Niyi. But I've been thinking, Prof, will it help to cut unnecessary costs, say overhead costs, for instance? In what areas could you recommend?
Cost-cutting measures, things you adopt not just because you're in a recession. There are things you adopt, at all times. Okay. Cost-cutting measures.
Even when the economy is buoyant.
Yes. And it's something we would like to see, not just at the federal level, but at all
levels of government.
All levels of government, and for all institutions. So both at the federal level and at the state level, local government level, we want to see on a continuous basis, efforts to reduce costs, especially the issue of personnel costs and overheads, as you mentioned. These two, make up the recurrent expenditure. Indeed. So it's in the interest of the economy that going forward, recurrent spending as a percentage of total budget, is reduced to the barest minimum. So the government should continue to focus on how to trim the size of government, how to trim expenses, at this time. And let me also say that it's also important to recognize that this is also the time to try to spend more money in employment elastic sectors. The employment rate in the country is already high at 27.1%. If you add underemployment, 28%, you have a disturbing figure. So every effort should be made, especially now that the economy in a recession, to ensure that whatever we are doing is such that will create jobs. And I'm happy. Already we have the economic sustainability plan. Okay, following through that plan, implementing that plan will create a lot of jobs, especially with respect to the mass agri program initiated in that program, the mass housing program, the solar energy infrastructure elements in that program. So if we implement them, to a reasonable extent, they will go a long way in creating job opportunities for the teeming youths in this country.
Okay, again, what role might market forces play in getting Nigeria out of recession soon enough? Of course, by market forces, I mean both producers, wholesalers, retailers, and consumers alike.
Market forces are the pivot of any economy, and especially if you are running an open market economy. So, but of course, in the Nigerian scenario, I think market forces were up to recently constrained in the area of PMS and the electricity tariff. And I can see obvious efforts to redeem those sectors. And in doing that, especially in the PMS segment, where the issue of subsidy had been addressed, it will translate to freeing more money, more funds, more income for the federal government and not just the federal government, all the tiers of government. So you, instead of using certain percentage of federally generated revenue for subsidy, there will be more money, to spend. Then beyond that, it will also energize the productive activities in that sector. I believe that we don't have active refineries up till now because we were constrained with the appropriate pricing of petroleum product, especially PMS. If we had appropriate pricing, it's more likely that you have had more people, not just collecting modular refinery licenses, because since 2005, I know the first set of modular refinery licenses were issued in 2005. It is not until just about 3 or 4 days ago that we can say that there is a manifestation of our targeting modular refinery. So, of course, you have the Dangote refinery coming too. And yes, we have the 4 NNPC refineries, but they also were constrained because it got to a time NNPC could not organically fund, the rehabilitation, because for me it's no longer turnaround maintenance. There had been a level of degeneration that has set in the streaming of those refineries. So it had to be, like a reconstruction all over. And to do that, you will need investors. local and the foreign to come in. But no investor will come in if the pricing are not right. So that is those are places that the market forces would play. Once we allowed market forces, to take preeminence in those sectors, it's likely that sector will open up. It's not just about giving us produce, PMS produce, for instance, or we have more electricity power supply per hour. It also means that more actors will come into those sectors to invest, and as they invest, it opens up opportunities, either in terms of quality and in terms of employment opportunities for Nigerians.
All right, now, Prof, I'll also like you to take a shot at that last question, and while at it, would you say that the 2021 budget is solid enough to help, pull Nigeria out of the recession? Or does it have to be tinkered with in line with the prevailing circumstances?
Yes, thank you. Let me first weigh in on the issue of
the market forces,
especially with respect to the oil sector, the PMS. Yes, I agree that market forces, should be allowed to, to play out. But it's also important to recognize that you may also have justification for government intervention, from time to time. Now, beyond the issue of pricing, for me, it's time the government, removed its hands, from this issue of, subsidy. It's time.
I think that's been done now.
Yeah, yes. I'm only saying I'm in support of it.
It's justified.
Yes, it's justified. Yes, it's justified because we can't, continue to do so. It's unsustainable, especially given where the, our debt stock is. The only way the government can continue that kind of thing is to borrow. And our situation with debts. Already the country is overburdened by debt. In the 2021 budget proposal that you just mentioned, over 3 trillion, I think 3.1 trillion was devoted for debt servicing alone. So you can imagine the opportunity cost of having 3.1 trillion for debt servicing alone.
So is it then as resilient as, touted, its budget of resilience at the end of the day?
Yes, everything boils down to implementation. We have a budget size of 10.8 trillion, of course, largely a deficit budget. We have over 5 trillion naira as deficit. But interestingly, for the first time in many years, the capital component, is a little reasonable in my view compared to what we used to have before. It's over 3 trillion. So if we can implement that capital component 95%, okay, you can be sure it will go a long way in bringing about development, because that's what is important is implementation. If you look at that budget, power, works and housing, transport, the critical sectors have been given some attention, as it were, including, again, for the first time in many years, including education and health, that received over 100 billion each in just for capital, the capital component. So implementation has always been the bane of our budgetary process in Nigeria, and I think if the 2021 budget, even as it is implemented, okay, but of course, we may have some revisions because of the the destructions that took place during the NSAID crisis. But even as it is, if it's implemented to the letter, I think it will go a long way in reversing the downward trend in economic activities.
All right, let me take the next 1 minute that I have left to talk to Nii. It's by way of course, rounding off your thoughts. Some business interests have been clamoring for reopening of Nigeria's land borders, which you also alluded to earlier. Now, would you think that this is in our best interest at this time, considering prevailing circumstances?
Oh, well, I will believe that the federal government committee set up to look into the border closure, and of course, also given the responsibility to negotiate with our neighbors, the neighboring countries, would have done this, would have concluded this consultation and negotiation, because at the heart of the border closure was the how do I call, was the brazen exploitation of the Nigerian big brotherism, in the West African region, and you had countries that built their economies, around illegal, illegal exploitation of Nigerian market size. So if there had been appropriate consultation, there had been negotiation, and all the issues raised, had been resolved, I mean, it's a country cannot be alone. We can't close our borders forever. We must open it at a point in time, because it's about international trade. So, but I think the issues had been settled.
Okay, Niya Kinshiju, financial and investment analyst. Always a delight having you on the program. Thank you indeed for coming.
Thanks so much for having me.
And Professor Uche Waleke, Professor of Capital Markets and former Imo State Commissioner for Finance. Thank you for your insights on insights.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you.
It's now time for the media review segment, and Elizabeth Omoruyi is standing by.
The Nigerian Association of Women Journalists, NAWOJ, was established 25 years ago to increase women's access and leadership in the media. With the new eagle taking up the mantle of leadership, female journalists are expectant. My guest today is the newly elected president of the Nigerian Association of Women Journalists, Ladi Bala, who will be sharing her agenda with us on Insight. The good thing is she's one of us at the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA. It's nice to have you join us on Insight.
Thank you very much. I'm glad being here today.
All right, congratulations on your new office. Let me ask you, how do you feel right now being a president?
Man, with all sense of humility, I feel privileged and excited about becoming the national president of NAWOJ. And I give glory to God Almighty for making this possible. To me, it is grace of God that has brought me this far, and I'm so excited about it. All glory to God.
All right. Tell us about your journey into the world of media and you now becoming the president of NAWOJ.
Yeah, I started my media career, journalism career, at a very tender age. Precisely, I started working in the media at the age of 18, and I grew through the ranks. And today, to the glory of God and grace too, has seen me through. I'm now a principal reporter with the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA. The journey has not been smooth. It was a tough one because starting a profession at that tender age, the teaching process were there, but we're able to weather the storm, and today I am where I am. And I also joined the NAWOJ, which is our own association. Then just a member, just offering my service. I submit myself to the authority of leadership at various levels, and I became the auditor at the chapter level. Subsequently, I became the assistant secretary of a state chapter, that is at Mawa State Chapter, and then the vice chairperson. And later on, I became the state chairperson of NAWOJ, and subsequently national secretary. I just concluded my 2 term as a national secretary. So I believe that I've learned a lot in the journalism profession that helped me to be a leader in NAWOJ. And today, to the glory of God, I am now the national president of NAWOJ. All because I submitted myself to the authority of leadership at various stages of my life. And I was able to learn, and today, here I am by the grace of God.
Okay, we would like to know, I'm a female journalist as well. At what points did you decide that, oh, I think I should pick up this mantle of leadership?
I realized that NAWOJ offers us a platform to explore our environment and to also discover ourselves and to discover what we can do for the good of humanity. So, and that kept me going in NAWOJ. And when I became the National Secretary of NAWOJ, I realized that NAWOJ is such a big platform that we can do a lot, to the society, not just to women journalists, that we can do a lot to offer direction, to government and also to give hope to the hopeless, voice for the voiceless in the country. So it was at that point I told myself that, Ladi, why not get yourself ready to take up the mantle of the leadership of NAWOJ? Because as the National Secretary, I have my limitations. Okay. I can only submit to the authority of the leadership and provide my little advice here and there. We have a social responsibility. Now, coupled with the fact that we are also women and we are also leaders in our own right, to me, I think being the National President of NAWOJ, we afford me that privilege to push through, some agenda that will help better the lots of many, particularly women and young boys.
Now, talking about your agenda, you defeated quite a huge number of candidates to scale through and you merged winner. Would you like to share your agenda, your mandate with us? What are you going to be doing differently from other past leaders of the association?
Thank you. Yeah, we are going to be doing things differently this time around. Basically, we are going to center on the issue of promoting professionalism among our women. There is need for us as journalists to operate within the confines of the ethics of the profession. Okay. Because when we do things rightly, when we do things rightly, we also promote good governance in the country. Yes. So, because as journalists, we are critical stakeholders in the Project Nigeria. We are critical stakeholders concerning about what happened in this country. So each time we take our pen to write, each time we want to put out that story, what should readily come to us at the back of our mind is what impact will my story make in the society? Will it make or mar our society? So to me, the need for our members to adhere and operate strictly within the ethics of the profession should be paramount, and that we intend to impress on our members. Until that is done, we cannot make any meaningful impact in our society. And secondly, we will be promoting unity of purpose among women journalists in Nigeria. To me, I see NAWOJ as a mini Nigeria, because it is an association that its members cut across all divides. So we are a reflection of this country, Nigeria. So the earlier we unite ourselves and begin to push for the unity of this country in all that we do, to me, it will go a long way. So we are going to promote unity of purpose among members, and the issue of training and retraining of our members will be a central, a very cardinal agenda of this administration, because we need to build the capacity of our women so that they can function effectively and optimally. So training and retraining will be the central focal point of this agenda. Already we have done that in the past. We have trained women journalists on gender sensitive reporting. You agree with me that that is the intent today. Gender issues must be brought to the front burner, and nobody, no group is more positioned to do that apart from the Nigerian Association of Women Journalists. So this is going to form part of the things that we shall be doing, building the capacity of our members, and we also intend to expand the scope of our training to the area of ICT. Our members in some part of this country are not too exposed to that environment, that space. So we intend to build the capacity of women journalists in the area of ICT, and that we intend to collaborate with the various tertiary institutions across the country to provide that platform for our members to be trained. And the issue of mentoring is one area that NAWOJ intend to hold strongly and to promote. We need to mentor young girls to join this profession. we can do more. We intend to harvest young girls that are in tertiary institutions, those that already study mass communication and journalism.
Okay.
They need to be encouraged that this is where they belong to, the newsroom. Not that you study mass communication and you feel you don't want to belong to the media. Perhaps because of the stereotype, because of what people say about women that work in the media. You know, there's this negative perception about us, but we are women of substance, we are women of integrity. So we intend to talk to young girls in schools that as soon as they are coming out, we are going to harvest them. We are going to encourage them to come and occupy their space in the newsroom. And for those that are already in the profession, that are practicing, we intend to mentor them for them to stand out, you know, in their, as they apply their trade in journalism. We need to mentor them to understand their place in this country, because we are critical stakeholders. They need to understand what they represent and to also pursue it vigorously so as to stand out and make the difference. And now at 31, we really don't have a national secretariat, and this is one big project that under my watch we are trusting God to bring to pass, to end this narrative of now not having a national secretariat. So this administration will be building a national secretariat of NAWAJ, and we will be reaching out to some critical stakeholders in this country to support NAWAJ to have a national secretariat. We are tired, you know, of squatting at the National Secretary of the NUJ. So this is one big project that NAWAJ will be calling on all to join hands with us to ensure that we have a national secretariat in a very, short time.
Let me take you on the issue of assault.
You know, this is a very big problem. That was why in the last administration, we took our time to train women on the issue of safety, equity in our places of work. And we also took time to talk to our media owners on the need for them to provide a conducive atmosphere for all journalists, particularly women, for them to strive and give their best in the course of their job. It is a very serious issue. Under our watch, this administration, we are going to be firm. We are going to be firm. We're not going to sit back and allow any media chief or media organization allow abuse, you know, on our members. We are going to speak out strongly against it. We are not going to allow it to continue. But it's an issue that we intend to also carry out advocacy on media organizations that, look, this is the needful. We need to do it. Because I can't operate on that atmosphere that is tense. I cannot give my best on that atmosphere that is not conducive. So it is the responsibility of media organizations to provide that enabling environment for women journalists to strive. We're also looking at the area of encouraging our members to have a second address, building their entrepreneurship skills. You know, we all need that.
Yes.
As a civil servant, I know that my salary doesn't really take me home. You know, but so we need to do other things, you know, to add value to our lives, other things that will generate extra income into our coffers. So we are looking at the area of providing entrepreneurship skills to our members. They need to learn how to do little things, you know, with their hands. When you do little things, your friends around you, your brothers, your sisters, and your children get to learn that. And before you know it, almost everybody in the family has something to do. So that we intend to do for our members. Other welfare areas that we're looking at is to partner with state government to sponsor our members on pilgrimages. You know, it is important because without God, we can really do nothing. This country, we are all religious people, so our members need to be encouraged to go and perform those unique spiritual exercises. So we are going to be partnering with state government to sponsor our members to go to holy pilgrimage. I'm talking about the Muslim pilgrimage and the Christian pilgrimage. To me, this will help our members. It will encourage them to know that to have a sense of belonging in what goes on in this country.
Ladibala, President, Nigerian Association of Women Journalists, NAWAJ, thank you so much for coming on Insight to share your agenda with us.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, NAWAJians, for giving me your mandates.
And that's it on the Media Review segment this week.
And I did enjoy your conversation with Ladibala there and wish you could sustain it. But we have to go now, isn't it?
Of course, we have to go. We wish her all the best and we hope she'll make positive changes. We'll see you next week. I'm Elizabeth Omori.
And from me, it's bye for now. My name is Victor Azu. Thank you for watching.